Hi, welcome. This is the continuation of the reading of Walking a Rainbow by me, Michael Shearer, about the pilgrimage of Santiago, Camino de Santiago, done with my son Kez, age 9. This is chapter 16, which is called Liberating Feelings, and begins in Santo Domingo. Out to a greengrocer's in the morning for some fruit. I was getting into the habit of using the gap between the times we got up, instead of fretting at the leash. The shop was full of women chatting, more of a social centre than a shop. The jovial, balding shopkeeper, plainly contented in his work, seeing the scallop shell around my neck, served me first. No one minded. I popped into the cathedral on the way back. Here, high up on a wall, is the world's most ostentatious chicken coop, elaborately ornamented with Gothic stone carving, pinnacles, and a decorative iron grill. A cock and a hen flapped about within. There's an unlikely story concerning resurrected roast chicken to explain this bizarre sight. The interesting question is why the people of this town should have acquiesced to a prominent hutch in the church, and not only tolerated it thereafter, but grown proud of it. The answer is the local spirit of place. Santo Domingo is a friendly family town where homely values prevail. What better living image of that could there be than a cock and a hen in a coop? If family life and a sensible concern for domestic well-being matters, why not display the fact in the church? I could think of worse foundations for a religion. We left Santo Domingo by the main road over the Rio Oja, except there wasn't a river, only a parched channel of stones and grass. A long straight road towards Grañón on a hill. The lorries kept sweeping my hat off with their slipstream. By the roadside a dead dog, bloated, teeth bared in frozen pain, stinking. The other side of Grañón we were crossing a field when a strap on my rucksack broke. Relatively unperturbed this time, I replaced it with a strap I used for compressing my sleeping bag. Problems tended to occur singly, practical problems that is. We stopped and took a break, assessed the problem, decided on the best possible action under the circumstances, did it, saw what difference it made, did the best possible thing under the new circumstances, and so on. What else can you do? We paused to see the famous font at Redithilla, a fat bowl, maybe 4 feet across, swelling upwards like most of a pumpkin. Within, where its seeds would be, is a pool of energy. I could feel it prickling the skin when I put my arms into the void. The segments of this vast stone fruit were carved, layered with stories of windows and dormers, like a crowded medieval town, a circular town, a foretaste of the celestial city. For among many other things, Santiago is emblematic of the holy city. The harmonious community of the enlightened, which appears in many cultures. Jerusalem, Rome, Shangri-La, Shambhala, El Dorado. Places far distant and semi-legendary, which the questing seeker aspires to reach. Spiritual places of the soul which, like Plato's Republic, have no physical existence, and can only be founded in the heart and mind. Those who separately found, not find, the holy city within themselves, enter its gates and join the community, the secret college. Just after Redithia, which means a small net or a hairnet, a young woman caught us up. She was called Bienvenida, which means welcome. The arrival of Bienvenida was both refreshing and disconcerting. She had reached that point in life of the first full flowering of womanhood. She was what my granny had called well blessed. She was all fulsome curves, but had yet to gain the skills of coping with them. Dressed all in virginal white from head to foot, she wore only trainers and socks, a skimpy pair of shorts with white knickers beneath, an inadequate vest, and a white peaked cap above a face like an Aztec. This clothing strained to keep her newly blossomed flesh in, and manifestly failed. There was always some portion of her hanging out. The motion of her walking encouraged the more recent portions of her anatomy to attempt escape, which they almost, but never quite, achieved. It was a disturbing experience to walk behind Bienvenida. As she strode ahead, vast expanses of freshly pink and beautifully rounded buttock would be rhythmically revealed. It was decidedly hypnotic. The eyes were drawn and rocked gently from side to side in empathy with her motion. After a while, walking became quite uncomfortable. The only chaste solution was to make sure of walking ahead of her. But then a glance back revealed a positive sea of breasts, scarcely covered and striving for freedom. Even without a look backwards, the presence of Bienvenida could be felt like an ache. Like a major planet, she changed the shape of space all around her. Even trying to concentrate on the landscape was no relief. It was undulating and treeless here, like a huge recumbent Bienvenida. She seemed everywhere. Earth and flesh echoed each other. The fountain at Biloria de la Rioja couldn't contain itself, and instead of a steady flow, ejaculated water bombs. Unaware of this, I bent over the bowl, pressed a button, and it shot me in the face. Kez fell about laughing. Nearby, homage was paid to her power in the shape of a statuette of an almost naked goddess. Certainly Bienvenida was a true deep-bosomed daughter of Demeter. She embosomed fecundity. I'm sure as she passed, the hot, cracked earth felt her presence, yearned into life, and seeds deep in the hard ground sprouted spontaneously. The primordial maiden did my rampant randiness no good at all. We sweltered down more dreary straight road, the constant roar hovering in the heat, until just over a bridge appeared what looked like a transport cafe laid back behind a huge car park full of trucks. The Restaurante Leon had higher pretensions, however. Red brick, like a golf clubhouse, set in trees, rambling roses and trailing ivy, with white metal garden furniture on the patio. An oasis. They made much of Kez inside, regaled him with valientes, and brought out an immense book for us to sign. It had wooden covers, parchment pages, and furniture hinges to hold it together. Claudio and I dabbled in the pseudo-profound, while Kez wrote simply, Kez, 9 years, a pilgrim. We ate a delicious meal of roast quail. Back down the unending road we passed 2 dead barn owls and a mole by the roadside like milestones. Milestones, suggested Kes. Our different natural pace sorted us into a single line. As those ahead passed a tree, it was amusing to see that we had each independently acquired the same habit. As each person reached the line of the tree's shade, the hat was whipped off like a salute to give the head a breather. It remained off through the shade, to be replaced as each crossed the margin of the shade into the broiling sun once more. It was like a line of troops doing homage to the tree. With relief, we turned off the road into Belorado. The refuge was a parish room annexed to the church. A hall with a rickety stage at one end and a red and white checkered floor with a huge refectory table, its edges carved with a crossing chalice motif in its centre. The table was covered with apples, oranges, tomatoes, cheese, bread and red wine in unlabelled sea green bottles. Here sat Vicente, the music man from Nájera, quietly smoking. I sat by him and offered my scallop shell around my neck as an ashtray. The irreverence amused him. I asked him how he was. He made a clown's face of sadness, pointed to his feet and limply flapped his wrist in the gesture which meant, like too much, man. Then he pointed to his heart, made a gesture of opening with both cupped hands and said slowly and softly, "Wow," beaming. He indicated the food with an expansive sweep of his arm, inviting us to eat, which we did. In the late evening, Kes went to bed with a touch of asthma. Claudio took Bienvenida for a walk in the countryside to show her the position of Venus. I took a stroll alone. Belorado is a large village. In an echo of Santo Domingo, families promenaded around the main square, showing off their infants proudly, swapping gossip. Older children skittered about on bicycles. Teenagers posed by sleek Japanese motorbikes. Much attention was paid to the new solitary traffic light. People had driven in from surrounding villages to see it. They drove up and down to admire it from all angles, ignoring it if it happened to turn red. The heart of Belorado was a spacious main square, bounded by shadowy arcades and open-air cafes with striped awnings. In the centre was a bandstand, amid 3 circles of luxuriant, cool plane trees. Here the municipal band played, 3 saxophones and a trumpet, 2 drummers. They wailed and oompahed through tunes, while the old swayed and the middle-aged danced. One dignified old lady danced with her granddaughter, looking very smug. Even the dogs leapt about, trying to join in. Old men sat on park benches, smoking. A buttery, almost full moon in an intense gentian sky softened the night. A single stork glided silently by the mellow moon to roost on its immaculate nest on the church. A warden arrived in the morning. He tried to hustle us out until he realised that Kes was ill. Then he made us some coffee. We left late. The 4 of us, Bienvenida had joined our group, were quiet and walked separately in a long line, sometimes out of sight of each other, each alone with their thoughts. We met up beneath the trees around village fountains, like the one at Espinosa, with its fountain like a long grave, its tap set in a column like a headstone, its trough swarming with tadpoles. But even here we sat apart. I got Kes some Ventolin for his asthma in a chemist in Villafranca, and some bread shaped like a huge cowpat. Immediately beyond the town we toiled up a stiff climb through scrub and then oak to the Fuente de Mojapan, a welcome fountain with good water at the edge of the forest of the Montes de Oca, the mountains of the goose. Sitting there already was a Frenchman called André with startled, tender eyes. He told us he was recovering from a nervous breakdown, as if he were warning us to treat him gently. He passed the time while walking, he explained, meditating on his shadow. We rested, admiring the extensive view. Insects hummed constantly like electric transmission lines. The orange path snaked through the trees. I entered a sort of trance as the miles unwound. Thoughts came slowly and time sped. I climbed to a firebreak in the thick forest, a long broad path which had large crosses as markers down its centre. The earth was very white and stony, like the dry bed of a stream, but with patches of magenta-flowered ling. Dense pine and fir trees and an occasional patch of oak stretched deep either side like a presence, like guards. Humans passed through here. It was not their world. One foot was well on its way to the ground when I spotted a slight movement below it. Viper! I threw my weight desperately to one side, swivelled, started to fall, leaped and pirouetted to compensate for the lurching rucksack, all in a trice. The snake slithered away, fast. I had avoided treading on it by half a cat's whisker. I stood panting, my temples throbbing. Kes caught me up. "That was good, Dad. I didn't know you could dance like that. Can you do it again?" I suggested something he might do with his pilgrim's staff. He went on. I sat by the path to settle myself. Bienvenida waved as she passed. I sat some more, recovering from the passing of Bienvenida. Claudio came along and sat by me. The firs had a beautiful tinge of fresh green at the tips of their branches. So the forest had a haze of light green from all the new growth. The silence of the forest seethed with life. I began to feel the potential, the green striving. The feeling itself grew swiftly. I became light-headed. "Claudio?" "Yes, Michael?" "Do you feel anything odd?" "Odd? No, nothing special." "I'm feeling very strange." The sense of energy, of power, increased alarmingly. "Strange? How?" "I know this sounds silly, but tell me, can you feel the trees?" I glanced at him. He wasn't laughing. He looked interested. "I see them." "No, not that. The growing. The sun," I faltered. The trees are yearning upwards. I can feel it. The whole forest. It's enormous. All that force." It swamped me, as if an emotional dam had burst. My body felt charged. My mind swooned. I felt plugged into the current which powered the trees. It flooded through me. I lost myself. I was part of the forest. I grinned foolishly at Claudio. Can't you feel it, Claudio? It's so strong." I cannot feel it, he said seriously. A group of swallows appeared in the empty sky above, circling, swooping. More came. Time seemed to expand. Soon there were hundreds of birds immediately above us, turning and turning silently. "What's going on?" I said, a bit panicky. "Look!" He pointed. Down the path to our left a mist formed. It wasn't possible in the hot sun under a cloudless sky. "I think we should go and see," said Claudia. We packed up quickly and walked towards the cloud. I tingled all over. The cloud covered a crossroads, and down the dirt track careered a car in a billow of dust. We both laughed nervously. "Not a miracle after all," said Claudia. "You know, I really thought something very weird was going to happen." "Me too." We walked on into San Juan.